After a very underwhelming start to the season, to put it kindly for the Toronto Raptors. But after starting 2-8, things have turned around. Now, before I talk about how they've turned around things, why they've turned around things, all of that good stuff, if you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, it's both free, so it would be much appreciated. It helps me out. And also, if you subscribe, I mean, it's free content that you can pick and choose if you want to watch. That's my pitch for you to subscribe and like the video, so that would be cool. Anyways, now moving back onto the Toronto Raptors, the topic at hand. Like I mentioned, they started the season terribly, but since starting the season 2-8, they've gone on to win 14 of their last 21 games, which has seen them quickly ascend up the Eastern Conference standings, an ascension that's helped by the fact that the Eastern Conference standings are absolutely shambolic. Nothing short of shambolic when you have the 12th team in the East pretty much level on wins with the 6th team in the East. And it's not in a good way like, oh, it's just so evenly good across the board, they can't separate the teams. No, it's so evenly bad, they can't separate the teams. And Toronto have been able to swoop in and take advantage of every team consistently being inconsistent, because they've found some consistency and some form, and all of a sudden they're 5th in the East and a couple of games out from being a top 3 seed. And how has it all come to fruition? I think we have to look at how they started so slowly and why they started so slowly. And obviously everyone made note of losing Gasol and Ibaka, which have been huge losses, bigger losses than we anticipated, because Aaron Baines has been disappointing. It's just sad to see him in the state he is, which is terrible. I mean, he's found some form, if you can even call it form, recently. He's been less bad, if that's what you want to say, but he was terrible to start the season. And players that we didn't expect to be terrible to start the season were Norman Powell and Siakam. Siakam struggled. I wouldn't say he was terrible. And Norman Powell, yeah, he was bad. He was simply bad. He wasn't getting minutes, and he was close to being out of Nick Nurse's rotation if the team wasn't performing so poorly. He could have been getting 5 to 10 minutes a night. He was already getting 15 to 20, which was very low considering they were terrible. So that shows how badly Powell was playing. And Siakam, people wanted to talk about him, how he was terrible, he was overpaid, he was never going to be an all-star again, etc., etc. Personally, I had some worries about him. I didn't know if he'd get back to that all-star level, particularly this quickly, because he's already playing like an all-star again after a slow start to the season. But the disrespect on his name was just ridiculous. But you've had a resurgence from those two players. Chris Boucher's taken a huge stride forward. OG Anunoby's been fantastic. Fred VanVleet, everyone has been good in the last 21 games. Hence the rise up the rankings. And all of a sudden, this is the Toronto Raptors team we know and love, with a little bit of extra spice to it. Now, firstly, let's make note of Powell and Siakam's resurgence, because I think they've been two of the most pivotal, if not the two most pivotal reasons for them coming up the rankings. Because like I mentioned, Powell was terrible. That's not for hyperbole. He was colder than a Nick Wright hot take, which is cold if you haven't had the pleasure or the displeasure of watching a Nick Wright hot take video. Let's not get into that, but it was cold. He was struggling. He was shooting 30% from the field through his first 6 games. 30%? Yeah, it was bad. Since then, however, he's been fantastic. Over the last 20 games, he's averaging just shy of 20 points a game, on a whisker away from 50-40-90 shooting splits. Just a free throw away from being at 50-40-90 over the last 20 games. That is hyper efficient, hyper good basketball. Let's put it that simply. He's been playing fantastically, out of his skin, to be honest. And it's been huge, particularly losing Lowry for a big stretch of games. Powell has made the transition seamless, and he's left the Raptors with a couple of big ramifications coming from his resurgence. One of the ramifications is obviously they're actually a better team when he's giving you 20 points a night on really good efficiency. Yeah, that's a ramification. And another one is Kyle Lowry expendable? I don't think so, but it's a question. And the transition next year, or whenever Lowry retires or moves on, etc., etc., will definitely be more seamless if they keep Norman Powell, this version of Norman Powell, Fred VanVleet, etc. They're going to be a lot better than you would have anticipated just last year, when it looked like they needed Kyle Lowry. And I still think there's times in a game where you look at Toronto and you're like, they're crying out for Kyle Lowry's creation in the half court. I mean, we can look at the 76ers game most recently. In those last 3 or 4 minutes, they were clamping up, and they were clamping up all game long, particularly on Joel Embiid, the son of the Toronto Raptors. I mean, Baines, Gasol, Ibaka, it doesn't matter. He's still going to be sons by the Toronto Raptors, as are the 76ers. But even with all those clamps going on, they weren't really able to get much creation in the last couple of minutes. And if the 76ers hadn't have been so terrible and hadn't have bricked so many shots, plus good defense as well, let's not discredit that, then the Raptors might have ended up losing that game. This is things that we have to consider, because if you want to be a contender, those are the kind of things that you need to keep in mind. And yeah, they seem to lack a real half-court creator in those last couple of minutes against the 76ers, with the length bothering Van Vliet. Siakam wasn't really able to get his shot going towards the end of the game. That's where I think he's not quite expendable. We saw him in the playoffs last year. He was absolutely immense. He nearly dragged them to the Eastern Conference Finals. It was a joy to watch. And who are they going to get back realistically? Andre Drummond, no. No. Not because they're not going to get him back, because don't trade Kyle Lowry for Andre Drummond. I know Aaron Baines is terrible, and you think, oh, Andre Drummond, 20 and 20. No, don't do it. Don't do it. I would rather Kyle Lowry run the center, Pascal Siakam run the center. I don't care. Just don't trade for Andre Drummond if it means giving up Kyle Lowry. You can get a better deal than that. Just keep him. Let him go for free, because Andre Drummond will be walking for free next year anyway. So there's really no point, because he's not going to help your team more than Kyle Lowry. I know it's a positional need, but still, no. But moving on from the Kyle Lowry talk, which is inevitable whenever I talk about the Raptors, because he's one of my favorite players in the NBA, and moving on to Spicy P, who, like I mentioned, got a lot of hate to start the season. Overpaid, scrub, spin move. That's all he's got in his arsenal. Does he have the smallest bag in NBA history? Like, unironically, people are saying, does this man have the smallest bag in the NBA? It's like, I don't care, because he's still giving you 20 and 10 to go along with 5 assists a night and some good defense, and he's really elevated his game. He did start the season slowly, and his three-point shooting is still not quite there, but he's been a more efficient mid-range shooter. He's posting up more effectively. He's shooting over smaller defenders. He's taking advantage of those mismatches better than he ever has before. The game looks like it's slowing down for him in every aspect, in every sense. His playmaking has taken another leap. Everything he's doing is better than last year, realistically, apart from shooting the three ball. Just as a whole, Toronto have been very solid on both ends of the floor over the last 20 games, as you'd expect, seeing as their record has been good, but they've ranked top 10 in defensive and offensive rating, which is obviously a great metric to measure that they're balanced on both ends of the floor. We know how good their defense is. I'll talk about that just shortly. But you look at the teams with a higher net rating than them, and it's the Jazz, the Clippers, the Suns, the Bucks, and the Lakers. That's pretty good company, and it reminds me of the company they were consistently in last year, when they would always be up towards the top in net rating, defensive rating, etc., etc. All of those teams around them would consistently be the Bucks, the Lakers, and I'd always question to myself, this team, why are they not in conversations for being a championship level team? Obviously, it didn't pan out last year, so that was fair enough from those people, but they showed that they were very close to beating the Celtics and going through to the Eastern Conference Finals. Maybe this is history repeating itself, except maybe they go a step further. Who knows? Yeah, the Raptors, they're in that contending status again when you look at the stats, the offensive and defensive rating recently. And let's talk about their defense, because you're getting impact from all over the floor. Chris Boucher blocking Embiid, doing everything. He's got that catapult shot. It looks like a soccer throw-in, but all of a sudden, it just doesn't miss. Chris Boucher, slim duck. He's fantastic to watch. You love to see it. He just kind of goes out there, provides hustle, energy, and a really nice shooting touch from beyond the arc. What else can you want from a stretch big? He's been fantastic. And then probably the most underrated aspect of Freddie's game is his defensive ability. Towards the top of the league in steals and deflections, pocketed Stephen Curry, who never gets pocketed. He's very unclampable. He put the clamps on him, as Freddie does to multiple players. You then obviously have OG Anunoby, who's just unbelievable defensively. He did a good job against Giannis, Middleton, you name it. He was switching on to all of those guys against the Bucks. He does it every single night, night in and night out. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA, improving his offensive arsenal as well. All of a sudden, these guys are taking that next step. It's taken a while for them to do it, but now they're hitting their stride, and the Raptors are looking like the Raptors of old, the Raptors of last year. Overall, Toronto aren't perfect. Defensively, they're fantastic, but they're obviously missing a big piece straight down the middle, because Aaron Baines has been non-existent pretty much throughout the whole season. Well, he's been existent, but for the wrong reasons. He's been bad. Andre Drummond, I mean, if he gets bought out, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just opposed to them trading for him with Kyle Lowry. That's not going to happen. And you're not going to ship off the GOAT of your franchise to the Cleveland Cavaliers. That would be just terrible. Let's not do that. If there's one place where he might be able to get put in his place, which is just get to a point where he's just rebounding, defending, and taking high percentage shots, it's probably Toronto. They're definitely back in that contention status if you get Lowry back in the team and you start to see that offense that he can create in the half court down the stretch in games where I think he's still the most reliable offensive player in the half court for the Toronto Raptors down the stretch. We saw it against the 76ers, they lacked it. We saw it against the Brooklyn Nets a few weeks back when he was the reason that they won the game. He hit consistent shots, made consistent winning plays like he always does. And that's why Kyle Lowry is so valuable and has been one of the best 20 players in the NBA for so long now, because he just makes the right plays. And Toronto, they need that. I think they've won 16 straight without him or something ridiculous, but they still need that kind of influence, particularly in the playoffs. We saw it against the Celtics. We see how impactful he is. Oh yeah, it sucks that Chris Finch, the Toronto Raptors assistant coach, got pinched as well. My camera's gone off now. Let's ignore that. It's going to be some kind of an impact to the team. I think people kind of overlook assistant coaches because they're way in the shadows. No one really cares. It definitely will affect the team to a degree. How much it affects the team, none of us know that. And it's just one worth noting because it could be more impactful than people give it credit for. Anyways, that's all I've got to say about the Toronto Raptors. I don't think they're quite at the level they were at last year, but we're seeing signs of the same team that I and others fell in love with last year. The team that, despite not having that superstar player, quotation marks, they're still one of the best teams in the NBA and consistently managed to find a way to win. Have a good day, by the way.